Today we will be talking about Alzheimer's. Between 2000 and 2017, deaths from heart disease has decreased 9%, while deaths from Alzheimer's have increased 145%. 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or another dementia.
In 1906, Alzheimer's disease was first described by Dr. Alois Alzheimer in his patient only known as Augustus D. The patient experienced memory loss, paranoia, and psychological changes. Dr. Alzheimer noted in the autopsy that there was shrinkage in and around nerve cells in her brain. Alzheimer's was named after Dr. Alois Alzheimer, who was the first person to discover Alzheimer's disease. For about 25 years after the discovery of Alzheimer's disease, there was no new information. Then in 1931, the electron microscope was invented by Max Knoll and Ernst Ruska. This allows magnification up to 1 million times. This invention allows scientists to study brain cells with greater detail. New ideas and inventions to understand and treat Alzheimer's was a very slow process. It took 20+ years for each new tool to be developed. In 1968, researchers developed the first validated measurement scale for assessing cognitive and functional decline in older adults, paving the way to correlate the level of measured impairment with estimates of the number of brain lesions and the volume of damaged tissues. Then in 1974, an act of Congress established the National Institute of Aging, also known as the NIA, as one of our National Institutes of Health. The NIA is our primary federal agency that supports Alzheimer's research. After the NIA was created in 1979, Jerome H. Stone and several representatives from family support groups met with the National Institute of Aging to explore the value of national independent nonprofit organizations to complement and stimulate federal efforts on Alzheimer's disease. The meeting resulted in the 1980 formation of the Alzheimer's Association, with Mr. Stone as founding president. Today, the Alzheimer's Association is a leading voluntary health organization in Alzheimer's care, support, and research. Research and new ideas to cure Alzheimer's has taken a pause as they are trying to create more awareness for the disease. In 1983, awareness of Alzheimer's disease increased, leading Congress to designate November 1983 as the first National Alzheimer's Disease Month, indicating a greater awareness of the disease. In 1984, the NIA started funding Alzheimer's disease centers and establishing a nationwide network for Alzheimer's research, diagnosis, and treatment. After that, researchers George Glenner and Kane Wong report identification of a novel cerebral vascular amyloid protein, also known as beta amyloid, which is a chief component of Alzheimer's brain plaques and a prime suspect in triggering nerve cell damage. Then in 1987, the Alzheimer's Association assisted the NIA and Warner Lambert Pharmaceutical Company in launching and recruiting participants for clinical trials of Tasirin, the first drug specifically targeting symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. Researchers also identify the first gene associated with rare inherited forms of Alzheimer's disease. The gene on chromosome 21 codes amyloid precursor protein, the parent molecule from which beta amyloid is formed. Chromosome 21 is also the chromosome of which those with Down syndrome have 3 copies of rather than 2. Many individuals with Down syndrome develop Alzheimer's disease, often as young as their 30s and 40s. Finally, in 1933, the Food and Drug Administration approved Tasirin as the first drug specifically targeting Alzheimer's memory and thinking symptoms.
As we finish up the history of Alzheimer's, we are now moving into the modern research of Alzheimer's and new treatments. In 2004, the National Alzheimer's Disease Genetic Studies have been started, and it is where the federal initiative collects and banks blood samples with families with several members who have developed Alzheimer's late in their life, or in order to identify the additional Alzheimer's risk genes. The first report was on the Pittsburgh Compound B, which is also known as the PIB. It's a major potential breakthrough in the disease monitoring and early detection. The Pittsburgh Compound B enters the brain through the bloodstream and attaches itself to the beta amyloid and deposits where it can be detected by the positron emission tomography, which is also known as PET. They then started the Neuroimaging Initiative, also known as the AD&I. The ultimate goal of AD&I is to determine whether the standardized image, possibly combined with laboratory and physiological tests, can identify high-risk individuals, which provide detection and track and monitor treatment effects, especially in clinical trials of disease-modifying drugs. In 2010, the Alzheimer's researchers unite to raise awareness and the concern. For the dozens of Alzheimer's researchers unite with the Alzheimer's Association for a 66-day bike relay across America to raise the public and the congressional awareness of the urgent need for more federal funding to support the search for effective Alzheimer's treatments. The Alzheimer's Clinical Trial Database established, which was the Alzheimer's Association and its partners in the Coalition Against Major Diseases, also known as CAMD, released a first-of-its-kind database of 4,000 patients who participated in 11 pharmaceutical industry-sponsored clinical trials of Alzheimer's research treatments. The Alzheimer's Association Trial Match launched. It is a free, user-friendly tool to help the prospective participant identify clinical studies that might be a good fit. Stakeholders have anonymously identified building awareness of studies and increasing the enrollment as key strategies to accelerate treatment development. The National Center of the Health Statistics releases final 2007 data showing that Alzheimer's disease is now our 6th leading cause of death. In 2011, President Obama signs the National Alzheimer's Project Act, also known as NAPA, N-A-P-A. It's the first ever framework for a national strategy plan to address the Alzheimer's crisis, to coordinate our response for multiple fronts, including research, care, and support. There are new criteria and guidelines for the Alzheimer's disease diagnosis, which are the preclinical, which is the brain changes, including amyloid buildup and nerve cells change, may already be in progress, but significant clinical symptoms are not yet evident. Another one is the mild cognitive impairment, also known as MCI. It's a stage marked up by symptoms of memory and or other thinking problems that are greater than normal for a person's age and education, but that do not interfere with his or her independence. People with MCI may or may not progress to Alzheimer's dementia. Another one is the Alzheimer's dementia, the final stage of the disease in which symptoms of Alzheimer's, such as memory loss, word finding difficulties, and visual problems are significant enough to impair a person's ability to function independently. In 2012, a multinational research consortium, the Dominantly Inherited Alzheimer's Network, launches the first major clinical trial testing drug therapy to prevent the onset of Alzheimer's disease symptoms in people who inherited an autosomal dominant mutation, putting them at high risk for the disease. In 2019, the International Consortium established to improve care and psychosocial outcomes. The National Institutions of Health, which is also known as the NIH, awarded the Alzheimer's Association $1.34 million over 5 years for an international research network, leveraging an interdisciplinary consortium to improve care and outcomes for persons living with Alzheimer's and dementia, also known as the LINC. To improve care and psychosocial outcomes for the individuals with dementia. Bill Gates helps fund part of the Cloud Research Grant Program. Bill Gates joined the Alzheimer's Association the Cloud Global Research Grant Program with a $10 million award, with the stimulate of an additional $20 million is in funding to the Alzheimer's Association. Alzheimer's funding reaches an all-time high, which is $350 million increase for the Alzheimer's and dementia research funding at the National Institutes of Health, also known as the NIH, was signed into law, bringing the annual funding to $2.8 billion. An additional $10 million was approved for the bold infraction of the Alzheimer's Act. Thanks for watching.